Welcome, viewers and listeners, to another podcast of Beyond Circumstances. And with me today, I have Roi Shternin.
Hi Shiri, how you doing?
I'm well. Hello, Roy. Thank you for saying yes. Such a pleasure having you here. So, a few words about how do I know Roy? So, I think that I remember I first learned about you through Uri Goren. He mentioned you in one of his in his blog,
Yeah.
The Amazing Uri Goren. And then I was like, okay, I need to follow this guy. And I've been following you on social media for a while. I think we even spoke once or twice. Again, when I was putting together the dream list of guests for this podcast, I was like, okay, I have to invite Roy.
Humbled. Thank you.
So, my dear, for those of you who do not know who you are and what you do, tell us.
So I'm Roy, and I'm a former patient, maybe actually current patient because we are all patients. But I'm a former patient, recovering startup founder, and a retired global public speaker. And currently, I'm mainly a father, newly father. Yeah, working. Thank you. It's amazing working on fatherhood, on recovery, and sometimes still writing books.
Speaking of books, so I just want to show this one. Okay, this is this is called Revolution from My Bed: Regain Control over Your Life as a Patient. So there's going to be a link in the notes, and this is a book that I recommend to all of my coaching clients, by the way. So the moment you said that this was published, I was like, okay, I got it. So let's get to business, shall we?
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the first question that I usually ask my guests. And that is, what is one thing that people don't understand or they get wrong when they're dealing with a health crisis or when they want to recover or overcome something?
So it might sound a bit corny, but it will be only one instance of inspiration porn here. I promise. I think that we all hold tremendous power within us that we don't understand how to harness. And I think it's because in different cultures, in our Jewish culture, to brag is not a good trait. We are kind of learned to be humble, to do more for society than for ourselves, for example. And I think that it comes about when you have a chronic illness that you're not sure how to harness this power, and your inner strength is to something that is productive, not only into societal measurements, but also in an actual recovery plan. Yeah.
Okay. So when people want to recover, okay, where should they start? You wrote a book about, revolution. Is recovery a revolutionary act?
I think that in some instances you are forced to revolutionize, first of all, your thinking about illness, because there is a, classic case of somebody getting a diagnosis of a chronic illness, and this chronic illness is somehow manageable. I don't want to diminish someone's suffering, but let's say a very controlled diabetes, a type 2 diabetes, that it's completely controlled. You keep on working, you keep on doing whatever you did before. You take medication, you change some lifestyle aspects, and you go on. But when you are forced to be bedridden, or you are forced to leave your previous life behind, I think the revolution comes from understanding that nobody institution-wise, nobody will help you.
Sure.
It sounds a bit rough, right? But it's not like the system is there to help you. You can use it as a service or a list of services. I always say like a supermarket of health, or like a health mall that you pick things off the shelf. And if you're not revolutionizing your own perspective about your life, you may end up waiting forever that somebody will help you, waiting forever that somebody will understand you, or waiting forever until the illness will magically vanish, which is usually not the case with chronic illnesses.
Yeah. I think that one of the realization, and you and I have both experienced health conditions where we were bedridden for a while. I think that for me, it was a similar thing. It was the understanding that there are no saviors. I am the savior. It really is up to me. No one's going to come with a magic wand and go like, poof, let me save you from this. I can get help, but ultimately, I am my own savior.
And I think for some people, this is a very sad realization because it's very comforting to know help is on the way. And it's very heartbreaking to learn that help is not coming. Sometimes even help from the people that are closest to us. And I think that maybe revolution sounds a bit more radical for some people, but I can say that there must be a mind shift when you want to recover from something that's really taken over your life.
I think that, if I would summarize, and I would love your perspective on this, I think that the mind shift begins with the concept of okay, and shifting from everything's going to be okay to I can find a way to be okay. And then understanding what does okay mean for me. Does that
It's
resonate?
interesting, right? It's very interesting that you say it because there is kind of a threshold, right? A societal threshold of what it is to be okay. And this simple sentence you just said took me years to understand. Because for me, being okay meant performing, meant pretending I'm totally fine. Like when I recovered, like everybody said, newspaper, whatever, that I magically recovered, but it was not true. I was mainly pretending and using the last bits of my energy to perform some act that put me equal in society, to go to university, to try to work like anybody else. But as you said, okay is something that is very subjective. And today I learned, after many, many, many years, that it's okay not to be okay, but it's okay that you're okay is less okay than other people.
I love that you're saying that. I heard that sentence first from this amazing guy called Guy Tavori. I'm still trying to get him to say yes. You know Guy Tavori.
A dear colleague and friend, absolutely.
Amazing guy. And for me, it began with giving myself permission not to be okay and stop performing. I was so busy trying to meet the standard and letting everyone around me know that I'm okay, I'm not breaking. And I used to like break like there's no tomorrow. I would be a puddle on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that this is one of the hidden costs of chronic illness because there is something about an injury that is different than an illness. And when I'm talking about chronic illness, of course, if you have a virus for a few days, everybody is okay. If you have cancer, it's okay. I don't know why, but there is something in the mythology around cancer, maybe because it was so uncurable in the past. The entire system is rigged in a positive direction, and I'm happy it is. I'm a caregiver to a mother with cancer. I understand how hard it is, but I think that when you're talking about the rest of the conditions that are falling between the cracks, the way people look at chronic illness is often, for me, more judgment-based than compassion-based. And there is much less of a slack that you can pull than in other conditions. For example, if you have a broken leg and you say, I cannot attend this gathering
Mm-hmm.
because this place is not accessible, for example, people would definitely understand. They will change the venue. But if you repeatedly say, I'm too weak to join you for a beer, after a few months, this group of friends might not invite you anymore for a beer. So this is kind of something that it saddens me, but also urges me to understand it better and deeper.
Yeah. I think there's cancer is like a category on its own. There's a lot of permission. Okay. And when someone has cancer, oftentimes you will see people just saying, okay, I'm here for you. What do you need? But when it comes to other, I'm going to say something, and maybe people are going to get pissed off. There's a certain halo of sexiness around cancer, even though it's not a sexy illness. But it's like, oh my God, you have cancer. Okay, what do you need? But when it comes to other illnesses, chronic illnesses, especially invisible ones, okay, people lose their patience pretty quickly.
That they cannot see and they cannot grasp, and I think the transition is a lot of time much less dramatic than in other conditions. Like a lot of my advocacy is around invisible illnesses, including mental illnesses. But what resonates with me when you speak is the pain that comes to mind when I think about all those illnesses that cause you to be invisible to society. And more than often bedridden or home hidden. I'm talking about chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, endometriosis, POTS syndrome, and long COVID, many, many more. I also believe that it's all the same illness. Many of them are the same illness with different presentations, but this is my own kind of analysis. And I think that this is kind of a double slap in the face because it's the family and the close ones that are rejecting you, and it's society that rejects you, and it's not known enough, and there are no systems that are mature enough, like with cancer or diabetes, that the help that you'll get is not sporadic or very, very eclectic or very individualized based on your economical condition or your ability to be strong enough or have support of researching more. So this pain that comes to mind brings always those words of not being included, being invisible, not being seen, not being heard, and having a lack of certainty that I think it's one of the main things that we need with chronic illness. I hope I didn't kind of side it so much with this one, but yeah, it's a lot of pain when I think about it.
So you mentioned uncertainty. Okay. Now we look at the world today, and it seems like, we are going into a state of chaos, and there's a lot of uncertainty around us. And oftentimes when I work with people with chronic illness, it's like there was internal uncertainty, and they could, rely on the external certainty, and now everything is chaotic. There's, there's uncertainty, external uncertainty. So what kind of I kind of want to ask you, do you have any tips? But I don't want to go, like, let's talk about principles, okay? How do you navigate a situation where your internal reality, like your body, your health, things that used to be certain, things that used to be anchors, there's uncertainty there, but also the system that we know is not going to save you. It can offer you some help, but there's uncertainty there as well. What are some principles that we can offer people today to start navigating that?
I always talk about three different principles: sense of control, sense of direction, and sense of hope. I think that hope will be the fuel, and this is something that is innate in us as humans and as Israelis, Jewish people. This is kind of, it's our national anthem, is something that is deeply rooted in our culture. So if hope is the fuel, sense of direction is something that um, it doesn't matter what you do, but you must have a bearing. You must aim for something. And when you do that, you get sense of control. Um, when I'm talking about sense of direction, some people may refer to it as sense of purpose. So when I'm dealing with relapses, I am in a relapse right now, by the way. I took a break from all the things that I'm trying to juggle. And it's to find my bearings and to seek, first of all, what are my sources of hope in life? What can give me direction of or purpose? And how can I get back sense of control? And sometimes it's very little things. It can be that once a day you leave home and you do a 5 minutes walk. It can be a daily Zoom call with a friend for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be something grandiose like starting a startup or a revolution from your bed, right? But those three principles always help me to keep my bearings when I'm in relapses or when I'm bedridden again.
I think it can also be a really good roadmap. If you're coaching someone with a chronic illness, have a conversation about what gives you hope. And then what is the direction for the sake of what? What is the purpose? What do you want? What do you really want? And then how can you regain control? And there's also conversation about what do we actually have control over? Because when our body collapses, when our body is sick, when our body becomes this hostile environment, okay, because there's pain, because there's fatigue, you know, talking about control, might even seem a little bit cynical.
I think it might seem cynical, but then I'm always re-humbled when I'm thinking about previous generations of our families that had even less control. Maybe your family has also roots in Europe and experienced the Holocaust in one way or another. And it always brings me back to Viktor Frankl's work, always. And then I always reread or re-listen to A Man's Search for Meaning. And if your listeners haven't done it so far, this is a must read because you always have some sort of control. Even if everything is being stripped and taken away from you, you still have freedom of thought. And at some points, that's all I had. I could not even move in my bed, but I could control my thoughts and how to make them more productive and how to make them more reflective and how to do the odyssey for my own brain later on a page or, translate it into a story. But you always have something you control. And this is something that I think it's super strong for people seeking for this sense of hope.
I think Viktor Frankl's work is radical. I know that in my, not going to say darkest moment, but when I was really, really sick, I was bedridden. And when I was first diagnosed, I was given 2 years to live. Mind you, that was like over 20 years ago. I went back to what do I have control over? And the control was over my freedom of thought. I can control the meaning I give things, which brings me back to the hope. Okay. And then I can start asking myself, what is a sense of direction? And again, back to choice, back to control. So what I want to say is, as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing that for me, these three principles are not linear. They kind of dance together all the time.
All the time. It's not linear, and that's why I'm sometimes a bit cringed that this book, my first book that was published, that The Revolution from Your Bed that you just held in your hands before, has some rigid, I would say, advice or like kind of these are my learnings, because it's much more dynamic and much more individualized. And those 3 or 4 principles are always changing. Sometimes the sense of hope is coming from my sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and sometimes the sense of control is coming from my sense of direction. For example, when I could not walk even, the thing that I decided to do in order to get better was a simple action, was to enroll into a university, because then it gave me around 9 months to get well enough to go to university. And it sounds a bit unrealistic because, this is very dramatic when you say it, that you managed to do it. But people need to understand that I did it 5 times during my illness, enrolled into university, and I couldn't do it. But every year that I tried to do it, it gave me more direction and then purpose and then hope. And when I failed, kind of the organizations of the principle change. So the hope was a bit lessened, but then I had another direction, or then I had another purpose. So yeah, they dance around.
So you said failed. Let's say a few words about failure, okay? Because I think we it's really important. One thing that I say to my coaching clients, which is it's a coaching principle, is that there is no failure, only feedback. Now, when you're doing business or, I don't know, leadership coaching, fine. But when you're doing health or medical coaching, failure can feel pretty dramatic, okay? You signed up for clinical trial and your body's not responding. This is flipping scary, okay? But still, I think there's something around the non-attachment to the failure, understanding that failure is an invitation to learn, to readjust, to have a dialogue.
And I think it's exactly what happened to me during this process, because failure was such a harsh word that created harsh emotions. So the first year I couldn't go to university. For me, it was a huge failure that reflected about the failure of my body as an organism, the failure of my societal situation and social structures. Everything was reflected in this dark black light. But over the years, I didn't look at it as failures anymore. I looked at it as kind of, but what kind of feedback, as you said, or what did you learn, or what did you gain from this process? So I don't know, like, for example, in every trial, I had to improve some of the grades, like for the psychometric test, or what we say bagrut, or the high school diploma got a bit better. The way I deal with failure as a feeling got better. The way I expect myself to experience things got better. And eventually I also fine-tune what I want to do with this university studies, not only as an excuse to leave home, but what do I really want to gain from this experience? And without those quote unquote failures, I would have probably end up in a place that is not for me, in a time that is not the right time, and in a profession or subject that is really not what's aligned with me. Yeah.
So it's like taking the experience of not getting where you thought you should go. I'm not using the word failure because I want to reframe.
Yeah,
Okay? It's like not getting the results that you expected and using that as part of your evolution.
absolutely. And when you look 20 years back and you say, yeah, I threw this kind of fishing pole in the water, and it's good because it was either being in bed and have no direction. I don't know why I thought that the next natural step for me to go to university will give me purpose. But when you look back at it, you say, wow, it's cool because um, I really aimed for something that will force me to leave home and to deal with challenges that I was afraid of. And eventually, when I ended up in the other side, I could be very proud of my way there.
That's interesting. I love that. I love that. So with your permission, because I'm looking at the time, I
Yeah.
wanna shift a little bit. Okay. And I want to circle back to something that you said at the beginning. And when you spoke about, nobody's coming to save you, but, the system can offer you some assistance. And you called it a health mall. And that kind of brings me back to something that, when I speak with medical teams, when I do workshops for medical teams, and I use this term, they get really angry with me. And the term is health consumer.
Yeah. They don't like it.
They hate it. So, yeah. How do you see the
To
whole concept of being a health consumer?
to be honest, I don't like it either. I'm a health socialist, let's call it. Like, I believe that healthcare should be very equal and equitable, and that everything is very accessible. The health consumerism, in my perspective, is not about having two class of systems. One is private and one is not. It's not that at all. It's not about paying for services. It's about regaining the power and flipping the power structures in healthcare, that you're not a victim of the system and you have this feeling of being powerless in the system, but you can be empowered and be educated on how the system works and how your body works and what your body needs, and then use the system in order to hack it and get what you want. Like I would never been able to get a diagnosis without me convincing my skin doctor to send me to do tests that no skin doctor is supposed to send you. And he got some problem with the chief doctor of his HMO. But I used his kindness and his offering of help to get a product that for me was something that will help me get a diagnosis. And you can do the same regarding specialties. You can do the same regarding different treatments options, different medications. But it's all coming back to being empowered enough to do it, right?
Yeah. It always comes back to empowerment and choice. So let me ask you this. Do you see a connection between and I share the same view, in terms of what being a health consumer means. I'm in the same place. But do you see a connection between the concept of being a health consumer and patient-centered medicine?
I see the connection in the place of, again, breaking power structures. And I see the connection in the face of things when you look at consumerism today. People tend to talk about how powerless we are because we're bombarded with ads, but eventually we're making choices. And if we're adults, we're making most of the time informed choices, right? To consume something. And in healthcare, a lot of time we're not making informed choices because there is a difference if I'm going to a shop and there is a sign saying there is a sale and I feel like buying and then I regret it or not. There is a huge hierarchy in healthcare. And when I'm talking about breaking this structure is stopping to look at the patient as kind of the bottom feed of the aquarium of healthcare, the byproduct, this raw material you chew on one side and spit on the other. But you give patients and caregivers the power to make informed choices. And you give them the power, if they choose to, be empowered to make not only informed choices, but be a part of the decision-making process of their illness. This is where I see the connection. And it doesn't have to be connected in any way to privatized healthcare or not.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay, so we are about to start wrapping this up. So, two more questions. One is, or the first is, what is something that health coaches should know when working or when coaching someone with a chronic illness?
I think, first of all, if the coach has not been through themselves in a health crisis or prolonged illness, or that a very close loved one has been to it, I don't say that they cannot be health coaches. I say they have to inform themselves about the patient experience. And the only way to do it is in a non-judgmental way. And sometimes, a coaching has a setting. And in this setting, there are a lot of expectation. I would go a step back and just ask to have an open conversation with somebody that you know from your circle that have a chronic illness or is going through a health challenge. This is something that you must understand the daily struggles and not only the psychological aspects, but the hardship of pain, the hardship of navigating healthcare and so on. The second thing I think health coaches should know is that patients are fed up by being told what to do and that other people know better than them. I'm talking about healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
And I think they should always be humble in their approach, that they are a facilitator of a process and not an instructor of a process,
And not a savior.
not a savior. Only the patient can save themselves.
Yeah. And keep your advice in check as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, last question. What are one or two really good resilience tips that you would give someone living with a chronic illness?
First of all, I think it's super easy to create yourself a resilience toolkit. This is something that I do quite a lot when I train. And it's actually working also for Fortune 500, leaders and not only people in healthcare. Um, I think that in a very short reflective process, you can identify what are your resilience tools. What are things that can help you in time of trouble? I'm sure that if people Google my name, they see in my blog there is a post about it, but
Yeah,
I'll make it
we'll have
very
a link
short.
to your blog.
That's great. um, Eventually, you need to simulate a situation that everything is being taken away from you and to hang on to something. It's like you're falling off a cliff and you're latched to something. Those little rock you latch on, those are usually your resilience tools. And I'm kind of telling people always to have like a note on their phone in their favorite note app with those tools. So for example, for some people, going on a walk can be a huge resilience tool. And for some other people, it's something much deeper than that and involve deep reflection. So this is the technical tip that you should have this emergency toolkit. The second thing is to understand that resilience is something that is really innate in us, but it's also like other human talents, something that must be developed.
I love
And
that.
you can learn resilience. You can learn hope. You can really learn to develop a sense of purpose and a sense of hope and a sense of direction. And resilience is not something that is preserved to people that you perceive as stronger, but it's just something that you can map out to yourself. And I'm trying not to be sounding like a cliche, but I think everybody is resilient. You only learn it in the times you need to be resilient.
Yeah. I love that. I think I agree with you. Resilience is both something we're born with the ability to be resilient, but then, we develop it and we learn. We look around. Roy, my dear, thank you so much for saying
Pleasure.
yes.
Thank you for inviting me. Of
It was
course.
lovely. Where can people learn more about you and find you?
So my website, roishternin.com, Sternin with an H. I have also a Substack blog and a podcast. And this lovely book that you just held have a wonderful audio version played by a wonderful American actor. So you can learn more about it in Audible or Amazon. But I think it's more important that your listeners learn about themselves and not about me, because I'm just one case of a person who took matters to their own hands and took control.
Yes, and I do want to say this. Okay, sometimes um when you're facing your first health and medical crisis, you have no reference. So a book like you wrote and, blogs and other books that people living with chronic illnesses write, they give you the first reference. Where do I start? Okay, here's an example. This is what Roy did. Do I like it? Let me try it. Okay, I'll make it mine. I'll change it. But that's absolutely needed. And I really, really want to thank you for that book.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you know, but I've written several since then. I have a very technical one called the Complete Guide for Medical Appointments, which is kind
Lovely.
of like a workbook that you fill before you see a doctor, and it helps you through the process. And I have another book that's called What Do Patient Wants, and it's aimed more for professionals of all sorts of medical and social occupations that maybe wants to learn more about our experiences. And I'm super happy that you invited me. Thank you again so much for the time.
My pleasure. You are truly a fountain of knowledge. So
Thank
I want to
you.
encourage our listeners and our viewers to check you out, and we'll have all the information in the show notes. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Shiri, so much.
So, guys, listeners and viewers, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Beyond Circumstances. And if you are a coach, and you want to learn more about the trainings that we do, first of all, tune into the next episodes and check it out on social media. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your attention and focus, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Shalom.